Listening to There Is No God. Podcast.
This is a big one. There's a lot of stuff on here. There's Mushroomhead and Slipknot, Nightwish, Mimi Barks. Of course, we'll open up with this Gojira on this actual event. This was the Gojira live performance at the Olympics. Gojira had become the first metal band to perform in an Olympic Games opening ceremony on Friday, July 26th. They played from windows and platforms at the Conciergerie, a former prison in Paris, where Marie Antoinette and others were held before going to the guillotine during the French Revolution. The band were flanked by explosive pyro blood red streamers and decapitated women, creating a suitably epic display. That was something I was actually wondering if those, when on my short, I was wondering if those were streamers, streams and tassels or tinsel or whatever it is, or the just lighting making it appear that way. Or even it could have been liquid or something. It says here it was tassel or tinsel or some sort of fabric, cloth-like or paper-like material, paper mache maybe. But it is to give the appearance of blood, that there's blood from this being a former prison where Marie Antoinette was decapitated. The 4-hour Paris 2024 Olympics opening ceremony also included the likes of Lady Gaga, Celine Dion, and was based on France's Republican values of liberty, equality, and fraternity. Although Gojira didn't dial back their progressive death metal stylings, they opted to perform French revolutionary song "A ira," French for "It'll Be Fine." Ça ira. Translated from French to English, "It'll Be Fine." And we're joined by opera singer Mary Viatti. Speaking to the New York Times, vocalist Joe Duplantier admitted the choice to cover a revolutionary song made perfect sense. It was a very bloody era of French history, so it was very metal, he explained. It's not the first time a metal artist has played in support of a sporting event in 2022. Ozzy Osbourne and Tony Iommi represented Black Sabbath at the Commonwealth Games ceremonies in their hometown of Birmingham, UK, Birmingham, England. Now, I can see the importance now of the blood falling from the windows. And I can also see that the trend and the thing that's trending there is to sing from windows. Here we are moseying on over to the left side of the page, on the left side of the building, where you can see the band. Or actually, no, that's not the band. I guess you can't see the band in this picture. However, during lockdown, during quarantine, during the pandemic beginning, when we were globally not allowed to leave our homes unless essential shopping was to, unless I was to partake in some essential shopping. There was a bunch of people living in their apartments and in there from the balconies singing songs to express that freedom that was being taken away by the quarantine. So this was in France. The moment in time that I speak of in France. So then this happening also in France, and this year having the Olympics being hosted by France. It's a pretty good recurring theme too. It pops up often, daily in my head about how this happened, and these streams being like a symbolic bloodshed. I mean, that was the first thing I noticed when I saw the video. This is a very fitting scene as well to have, for the fact that it was where Mary Antoinette was decapitated, and it was a former prison, and that Black Sabbath did the same thing at the Commonwealth Games ceremonies in their hometown in Birmingham. This chick has got Doom Trap being interesting, how there's lots of other artists that are similar, like fucking Suicide Boys and Scarlord and just general trap metal. This says Doom Trap. I'm gonna have to definitely check this out. Her dream is for people to have sex in the mosh pit. That sounds definitely about right. Bridging the gap between metal, hip-hop, and industrial and the debauched German club scene. I can get down with this vibe. Imagery being painted here of the walking on glass and broken bricks off the side of the building, and neon graffiti all over the place. And drinking a Stella Artois. It's definitely something I understand, for sure. Impending doom. Another thing that's totally identical to me, in her view, she's been born time and time again, perpetually slinking out of one flesh suit and worming her way into another. Well, as lager being the elixir of life, seen it all vibe. Her house is her place is romantic. She likes seeing decay and beautiful things dying. Too many things shock her. Single called Abyss, just like me having a single called Abyss. Turbulent childhood, unhappy home, outsider at school, always dressed punk with massive boots. Same for me here as well. Also, just felt out of place, depressed, needed an outlet. Painting was her solace. She quotes here too. I'll go sober, drink water. It's the music that gets you high. It's total freedom. I literally was just saying something about this the other day when I met a stranger and was hanging out, partying with him, and he wanted to get fucked up, and I said, and we wanted to go party, and I was playing my recent black metal album, and I said, this is where the party is. This is where the real party is. A nice photo here of Mimi Barks, the artist in this article. Another quote. It teaches people in reference to This Is Doom Trap album, it teaches people that if you've done it once, you can always start again. You have the power to do that. And that is true empowerment. Wow, this is really like completely identical to the blueprint of Torturous Divide, and rebuilding the walls and being buried alive amidst. This is a great album. This is a really great artist. I can't wait to feature some of her songs on here on this episode for she's definitely gonna be in the artist spotlight. I'm gonna probably do. She'll probably already be on an earlier episode than this one. So having this artist featured on here and doing the quick quotes, letting you see her face and how she works, how she lives, born in Germany, living in the UK, wanting to come to the US. I'm excited to see this, especially since it's completely identical to everything that I'm doing here right now. So excited, my big fucking debut here on this really on this season of reading the news articles on a damn fine British publishing. Of this great and awesome metal music magazine. The artist's name is Mushroomhead. Okay, they're the editors of this issue confused me a little bit with the subliminal verses. In the spelling, it's wordplay. It's a verses. The subliminal verses, like Slipknot versus Mushroomhead. But here's what the title reads: the subliminal verses. Their rivals, Slipknot, got the glory, but masked marauders, Mushroomhead, did it first. If only acclaim and recognition had followed, it's so arguable. It's probably theirs for all intensive purposes to raise the debate. So raise the debate in the comments. Drop them right now, because I've had this conversation with somebody else on Instagram last winter, I believe, during the birthday of one of the Slipknot on this podcast. On the birthday of one of the members of Slipknot. And if you're watching on YouTube, the Spotify version will not be available till later, because I have to jump through some hoops right now. So listen to the imagery or watch the pictures of these photographs. This photograph is singular, not plural, of the artists of this band having so much of a similar style. But this is also a very old photo. Very old photo indeed. Currently, this band, at their new album and the music video, there's, I think, 2 or 3, only one that I've watched, where the masks they're wearing have grown very detailed. This is really cool, seeing the old style that they went with, where each one had a consistency about it. They're all consistent to each other. And look how many members, too. There's 2, 4, 6, 8 members in this band. And if there is, as old as this photo is, too, I doubt that any of these members are still in the band, but they currently have a female in the band, and have had a female in the band too, even with some of the older albums like X and Beautiful Songs for Ugly Children, a couple other albums from this band. They're really, really good. Their old stuff is just really good, and I gotta say that they are still hitting it pretty hard with their new stuff. So that's the recent, and you just can't get enough of these cool masks. I'm gonna mention a lot about that Slipknot feud, because that's what was mentioned here in the beginning. Their rivals, Slipknot. I mean, they're rivals. That's what they're saying. And yet their style is the same. But again, with the old photos, I mean, this is literally just back in the days of like Xeroxed, Save Your Sorrow. Xerox, Save Your Sorrow, Sun Doesn't Rise. I mean, I was watching that shit when I was a kid, man. I can just remember being 13 years old watching their music videos and shit, along with Mastodon. Frontman, this is the main vocalist I was referring to, with the hands over the eyes. Pan's Labyrinth. And Mushroomhead put on a brave face for album number 9 is that's the caption for this photo of the most recent photo of the band, and this is the album review. Released from Napalm Records, Call the Devil, Mushroomhead's latest album, has Metal Hammer Magazine UK saying Cleveland's masked metal mavericks continue to plow their own furrow. Mushroomhead may never have crossed over into metal's A-list, but their mixture of eye-catching Mad Max extras and a boiler room torture dungeon image and sonic carnival of the bizarre mix of progressive funk metal and US radio butt rock, you have to at least admire their creativity and ambition. I don't understand at all why they're speaking about this band this way when they're just insanely legendary, and then they're just still talking about them like they're the underdog. I mean, it's gonna have to be just, alright, it stays that way, that's how it is type of thing. But I'm looking at it like okay, well, more importantly, I'm trying to look for the details of the album and how they are referring to them. Their 9th album has plenty of ideas, a broad dynamic range, some genuinely surprising moments, and a few that don't quite hit home. The MVP is unquestionably co-vocalist Jackie LaPanza, who first guest on 2014's We Are the Truth before graduating to full-time status. She elevates every song she appears on, adding sugary pop melodies to some of the band's harsher sounding material. Her soaring vocals, juxtaposed with the crushing riff of hallucination, giving that song a unique flavor she's probably not used as much as she could be throughout. There are parts of Call the Devil that make the ears prick up. The rabid outlaw country crunch of opener Eye to Eye is a great way to start the album, but too often the band are just slightly off target. Emptiness and Decomposition are cases in point, the tracks being those titles. The former goes for a piano funk metal epic, but lacks the punch of the euphoric soar it needs, and the latter is clearly aiming for the warped lounge jazz of Mr. Bungle, but without ever really nailing the scatterbrained chaos of that band. This is made all the clearer when the 8-minute slow build of Shame in a Basket comes in at the album's close. With its quiet piano tinkle giving way to a gorgeous progressive, Pink Floyd-esque soundscape and a monolithic southern fried groove metal riff, it shows that Mushroomhead are capable of recreating the ambitious ideas in their mind, if only they could manage it with more consistency. It seems like that's what they're emphasizing. The consistency is lacking. I say to myself that they're just not appreciating that style, as it's purely psychedelic as well as the name of the band. So I'm in total disagreement here. I'm just in agreement with their formal review in that they're that they're ultimately summarizing in a nutshell. It's not consistent, the style that Mushroomhead brings. So let's browse through the article and see what we got. But that's cool album art though. He's calling the devil on his smartphone, and he's the devil. The media fueled the rivalry with Slipknot, says Steve Skinny's Felton. That's a quote from the band member. Same person, Steve Skinny Felton, also says, "We stood out from the new metal bands." There's likely no more captions other than this one there. Lend us a hand, Mushroomhead on stage at the Rockstar Energy Mayhem Festival in Mountain View, California, July 6th, 2014. Strangely enough, I honestly had thought that mask was like from the last video. So maybe that's current. Maybe that mask is current. And I don't know who she is, but she might be from the previous albums. But let's pull this album. Let's pull this up. I'm gonna pull this up and see what juicy details we have in store for us. So that quotes, that set of quotes from Steve Skinny Felton are from the only remaining original member of the band of Masked Metal Mavericks, Mushroomhead. Are they trying to tongue tie me here? That's 4 M's back to back. These members in and out of the band in the number of 20 is quite a lot of band members coming in and out of the band. And then the other thing about that similarity, other than the masks, is the boiler suit image. It says here that just through sheer bloody mindedness, Mushroomhead have endured, releasing 9 albums to date. I swear I could have thought, or at least think, that there should be more than 9 albums from like being almost 30 years in it, and seeing their discography a few years ago and having a Mushroomhead binge, and then listening to those ones that I mentioned earlier, and then seeing how many albums that they had already had out. This is only their 9th album. That's really crazy. And the way that they're referencing these albums and the labels is really saying a whole lot about everybody desperately trying to get as much of the history of this genre out as possible that will allow the history of it to be preserved. I mean, there's not gonna be much of it left pretty soon. So every article I'm reading about every artist is saying the same thing, that major labels run the show, and getting started on, and you see this constantly, that people get started on recording on cassette and then passing out cassettes at shows, just selling merch at shows. And these guys started up the band with 8 people and homemade masks and created 3 albums under a small label during the new metal boom. And it's great that this album's being written, this article, is being written to have all the contrast as it was between these two bands. Whereas reading Revolver as a kid and seeing how the stuff struck me is that it really struck a chord at oh, this band looks like this band, and then you have that that strange ambiance about it, and the strange air about it, that like this is extremely interesting. And with these guys writing this article, writing news articles like this and covering this kind of news today, it's, to me, and other people also interested, still retains just about as much of its mystique that it had 20 years ago. Alright, I'm covering this article and this news with really no expectations or guidelines. Like, I don't have to worry about people kind of attacking me in the comments or anything. But I still like to maintain the integrity of having brought what I would consider my perspective of this article, as well as the accuracy of the information therein. So it's a bit of a lengthy one, and I'm going to try to brush through this as best I can. It'd be nice if I make a mistake, but the financial hardships of the band caused them to have to work jobs. The 400,000 copies sold of their album titled 8 in Roman numerals was not enough for Universal, so they split. The fight with Slipknot, that it hadn't occurred to me until reading this, that the feud with Slipknot might have caused those lyrics in Duality where he says you cannot kill you what you did not create, most likely being directed towards Mushroomhead, but it's uncertain. These guys doing shows and trying to basically have everything as best that they can while not touring, keeping themselves financially afloat. It's just as important as the other thing that's mentioned here about the music inspiring you and then using the inspiration to create that art. But it's stating most likely that the large amount of members going in and out of the band have been the cause of most of the financial hardships. And one of the first corrections, hopefully the only correction of this, is 31 years ago this band was started. So I mentioned almost 30 years. It's beyond 30 years. And reading the album review and wanting to say something about avant-garde and how it couldn't be categorized as avant-garde, seeing here that the author of this article is calling it avant-garde, as it just literally ended the paragraph in describing more of the album. New author, not the same author of the album review, but new album, Call the Devil boasts bright streaks of melody in among slab-heavy riffs and that oddball penchant for avant-garde weirdness. So it's along the lines of what I was saying. It's like it's got the beckoning for avant-garde and the desire for it just isn't, though. It's not avant-garde. And the bits of drama, as Skinny puts it, they've never quite put aside. This I have to quote. This is really cool. I think of the Mushroomhead catalog as being like an art museum. He adds, every album is its own room within it. Each song is its own piece. Sculpture, painting, whatever. And I think Call the Devil fits right in there in the halls of shrooms. 2, also end it with another quote as the final paragraph states, Skinny's words, maybe rethink the masks is something he would change. I've worn them for 30 years and it's fucking brutal when it's 104 degrees Fahrenheit. But really, I get to combine all my hobbies and passions in one, and I wouldn't change a thing. Comments and replies from just interactions with people on YouTube. I commented with the music video for an old 80s song, No Time to Cry, from Sisters of Mercy that was covered by Cradle of Filth. And this is a reoccurring theme, as I had come across a PDF file that I downloaded and was reading about is like where, I don't know, maybe I was looking for the song or something and found this article of, or it wasn't an article, it was a creative writing piece that someone wrote that said something about No Time to Cry. It was about Alice in Wonderland, and it was like a connection of referencing Alice in Wonderland, using the character of Alice as a person who's, when she goes down the rabbit hole, she's running from something. I also used the same theme in my recent release, Darkest Pitch of Black. Full EP available on Pitiful Spawn YouTube channel. That this creative writing piece was, I don't want to say that my work was inspiration from it, because they weren't my words, but I'm seriously so confused here, as I'm like honestly in doubt on whether the person that I got those words from, whether those were her words. I don't even know where those words came from, but they wound up on my EP, and it's badass. I was just listening to it today, looking out at the water, and anyway, this is what this guy said. He's just basically saying that the Sisters of Mercy version came first, because I commented on the video for this original version of the song, and I said, so did this come first, or something like that. I don't know exactly what I said, but whatever it is that I said, he's said Sisters came first, and a black heart emoji. Well, that's good. Thank you, Solstice Dreamer 1967. Now as for the Korn song Dirty from the album Issues, I was having a bit of a nostalgic moment, as I do, and listened to this song, commented on it. I was like, dude, I probably said something, this whole, like, all of these segments that can reoccur, and I'm not going to always couple these with the magazine issue of the show, or the magazine show, or I'm reading a magazine. But these could be coupled with something where it's like I probably said, like, oh, this album never gets old or something like that. And Dominic Raheem 8459 says, hell yeah, their new stuff is so good in my opinion, but honestly, I could jam out to any Korn album all the time. That's fucking damn right. That's fucking damn right. Especially when, you know, you just couple it with some fucking little cruise or something, and I don't know. I could probably say I was probably depressed that day and bedridden and wasn't feeling like getting out of bed and shit, so I was listening to that. But it's a good album and a good song. Thanks, Dominic. And I responded to I responded to in a cover song. No, actually, no, not a cover song. I responded to looking further into the concept of the album Godspeed on the Devil's Thunder, the Cradle of Filth album that has a birthday coming up. Previously on the show, I mentioned the birthday for this album. I'm looking into researching the concepts of the albums, and I find this band, or AI did the fucking suggested videos thing for me, and I found this band, and then I did the research. One way or the other, I did the research, and the fucking band is named after, like, shitload of fucking concepts from that album, Godspeed and the Devil's Thunder, Cradle of Filth. So I commented on someone else's comment. I probably said something like, hey, I saw that you said this. I read some words that you said, so I responded like in a way that makes sense to me. And this person does the same. They think that it makes sense, that they can fucking talk shit about the Cradle of Filth, calling Cradle of Gayness. Like, it doesn't even rhyme with filth. And how so? How is it fucking gay? You know, how is Cradle of Gayness? And then a sickly emoji. I can't zoom in anymore as far as I can zoom in. And zooming in that far is still where I can see, yeah, it's a sickly puking. He's not the puking emoji. You couldn't even use the puking. So it's gayness, and then it's a green sickly guy. I'm very disappointed in you, Mikito426. You have disrupted the natural flux of how appreciation for good symphonic metal is meant to be appreciated. So I don't appreciate that, my friend. Work on getting better taste in music, alright? Okay? Alright, now thank you to the subscribers. I have to thank Nels TV for commenting that they subscribed, letting me know, and then subscribing to the podcast show on my videos, something about using Google Live Transcript. For the official Mickey GemInEye YouTube channel, Marcus Hartua, thank you for subscribing. And I said something about this on the previous episode, but getting interactions from official verified accounts and legends and all this stuff is very much appreciated. So thank you, Digital Tour Bus, for loving my comment that I made about my coffee routine and tea routine. That is appreciated, especially since we live in the same city. Thank you. Zeal and Ardor and their new album Grief. Swiss post-black metalers unveil their latest reinvention. There are 2 articles for this band, and I honestly can't see anything being black metal about this band from the looks of it on this issue, aside from the sigil of Lucifer. But in the documentary Play with the Devil, Becoming Zeal and Ardor, it was revealed that after perfecting his unique fashion of black metal at Delta Blues, on 2018's Strange Fruit, Zeal and Ardor band leader Manuel Gagnew effectively broke up the band. That was in 2018. Of course, they didn't stay broken up. Galvanized by the murder of George Floyd in 2020, Zeal and Ardor released the politically charged Wake a Nation EP that same year and laid out a vision of more oppressive, industrial, and alt-metal inclined sound that was explored fully on their 2022 self-titled album. Let's be clear about this right now. They're a black metal band making songs fueled by the George Floyd murders that were conducted by police officers. This, in contrast to the controversy surrounding the initial international, worldwide discovery of this genre, this is something that makes the band stand out. So I could see where they have two articles on this. Everything that says on the rest of the article is just going over the basic album reviews of their recent work. And they offer some stunning standouts. Contrast of twinkling high notes and earthy explosive heaviness stands out on Fend You Off. I'm obviously interested to check this out, just not going to be sure how I'll feel about it. So let me see what we can unveil here in the primary article for this band, Zeal and Ardor. It's us against the rich, Zeal and Ardor says. So now when I read this article, there's basically the gist. I got the gist of this. This is my rundown and summary. After I quote, my first gig at Zeal and Ardor was just a shitty mess from the band leader Manuel Gagnew. There's a lot of the rich, again, the poor divide in Switzerland is what they're saying. So this led them to a lot of clubs and gigs that had to do with small bars. And in doing that, they basically paved their way with, it seems like, just a lot of determination. They never gave up is the basic gist that you can get from it. But they just weren't accepted due to the fact that they're poor. And they had a lot of the, as much as they stand out, they had a lot of the basic usual premises behind bands that make it big. And he tells stories about getting high on mushrooms with Brent from Mastodon. Brent Hines. Legendary guitarist. Who was actually featured on a magazine of the world's best guitarist magazine. A zine, small publishing zine that featured Brent Hines from Mastodon. They played with Public Enemy's supergroup of all the Rage Against the Machine members, minus Zach De La Rocha, Chuck D, Be Real, Cypress Hill. Playing with these guys made them move on slowly to smoking weed with Willie Nelson and eating mushrooms with Brent Hines. That's fucking badass. And some of this I think is even paraphrased in the other article. But this is a band you might want to check out, as I know that I do. And they're extremely non-conformist. But talking to a journalist, he decided to withhold some of the information, like the illegal activities. Smart. Their band, it seems, is adding elements that are not going to be traditional black metal, but they'll have a little bit of something extra, something special for you to enjoy. So we'll make sure we check this band out, Zeal Ardor. I want to say I'm a little bit turned off from the name Graphic Nature, as it simply implies that they're popular, but there is a mention that they have undergone some pretty serious trauma that leads to their lyrics, so you might want to find that if you've also. Let's dig into this one. After, of course, we take a side detour to the only album review on this list of album reviews that I want to cover. Doom metalers, actually melodic death, mellow death, veterans, dark tranquility, that are featured on Solitary Productions Doom Metal 24/7, and End Time Signals' latest album here has Metal Hammer UK in the September 2024 issue saying this: in a career spanning more than 3 decades, Dark Tranquility have never released a truly duff album. They've split opinion a couple of times, particularly with the early stylistic shift of 1999's Projector, but even that has become an essential part of the band's back catalog. One of the originators of the Gothenburg sound that defined melodic death metal in the mid-90s, they've since embraced new textures and influences while still retaining their core identity. End Time Signals maintains the musical continuity, despite more major lineup changes that leave frontman Michael Stein as the sole original member. Newcomers Joachim Strandberg Nilsson on the drums and Chris Jackson bass are fully on point, though. The fresh blood may even have invigorated the band with a few tracks thrashing out in a way they haven't really done since their second peak in the mid-2000s, circa Damage Done. Unforgivable was the pre-release single that got fans salivating, but enforced perspective in a bleaker sun also features Whiplash segments that you can already picture fueling Virtue Festival pits across Europe and beyond. It isn't all about the speed these days, however, and there are still plenty of the mid-paced and more tangential moments that have defined the band's latter-day material. One of Us Is Gone is a somber string rap ballad dedicated to late former guitarist Frederick Johansson. Nothing is a bleak slab of synth-led gothic metal that's not too far from Michael's side project Cemetery Skyline, while Our Disconnect places driving drum fills and growl vocals against a more expansive movie score backdrop. Sounds like doom metal. It's not a classic, but Dark Tranquility's own high standards, with a few fillers letting the side down slightly, but End Time Signals has enough standout moments to maintain their remarkable levels of consistency. 13 albums in and still no duffer. For fans of In Flames, Amorphous, and the Halo Effect, also check them out on Solitary Productions Doom Metal YouTube channel 24/7. Let's move on to Mastodon. In this article we have some fairly old photos of Mastodon. So old, in fact, that even Brent Hines doesn't have his face tattoos in this photograph. But Some Kind of Monsters, the title, a concept album about Moby Dick, could have left Mastodon's career dead in the water. Instead, Leviathan became the breakthrough they needed. As in the album Leviathan being totally based on Moby Dick. Whereas I thought Leviathan was, the whole time, very interesting actually to me, that Leviathan, not being a whale, but a sea monster and a sea creature. And here we come to find out the whole album is based on Moby Dick. Bill Kelleher says, we were a bunch of dirty, stinky pirates. And the more recent photograph revealing a very leery and apprehensive Brent Hines looking at his bandmates as though they might have drank all of his beer or something, and he's kind of like wondering if they're gonna return the favor. Now let's see what the caption says. Mastodon in Chicago on June 20th, 2006. Listing the bandmates. Caption 2 of Brent playing the guitar. Next to Bill. Or Troy, Brent and Troy at Ozfest, the California Shoreline Amphitheater, August 13th, 05. Now for this article, they actually got a professor of interdisciplinary humanities at Utah's Brigham Young University and a dyed-in-the-wool metalhead, Carl Sederholm, who states that he fucking loves the album. And I have to agree, me too. Who doesn't fucking love the album Leviathan? You can exit right now. Now the imagery being painted for this article is that in 04, when the band was starting, they were still traveling around in a band and traveling from Atlanta all the way to Seattle. That's a 40-hour drive to go and play their shows, to play their songs. With the rough mix of their album Leviathan, this sets the pace for the article that the whole album is about Leviathan and exactly how they got their band up off the ground with the album. That they felt that their very first time practicing together, this album gave them that same vibe. And they were dialed in. So in 2000, prior to the beginning of the article, the music scene in Atlanta bubbled over with creativity, birthing sludge, metal, and punk bands. Into this chaotic brew, Mastodon entered. And they worked really hard and got their hard work to pay off when they created this album. As Brand was a t-shirt buyer in a retail shop, Brent was in construction, Bill worked in a restaurant rolling burritos, and Troy worked for his father packaging and shipping eBay collectibles to buyers across the globe. So it seems like that's a cool hobbyist job, and as well as the first one with the t-shirt buying t-shirts in a retail shop. Those are kind of cool, like hobbyist jobs, and then to go play in a band on the side and do shows on the side to start to make this beautiful masterpiece of Leviathan, as well as other ones that came over. Troy says, maybe that's why to this day I'm still so involved in our own band's merchandise. I knew how to make sure it gets there safely because people are paying good money for our stuff. The goal is for all four of us to play so much and get so busy that we couldn't have day jobs. Then this is where the concept from the Emperor of Sand came from, based on what the documentary states on YouTube, is that Remission certainly heralded their potential with a bludgeoning siege of neck-snapping metal and prog rock technicality, as one of the family members was in remission from cancer, causing them to write the album Emperor of Sand. That's not what this is about, but I was confused for a second thinking it was. And the neck-snapping metal and prog rock technicality, but while touring in support of the album, they realized they had no interest in rehearsing it for the follow-up. Enter Herman Melville's 1851 tour de force about a white whale. I had it in the back of my mind that it would be cool to involve Moby Dick somehow. The album came to him just before a three-leg fight from Hawaii to London in 03. Prompting a last-minute purchase at an airport bookstore. That's exactly how all the great stuff is written, is the stuff that you don't plan on. I'm sure there's plenty of other great comments in this article as well, so that's exactly why I'm brushing over it and going it very quickly. Made sense to give it a shot, says Troy. We didn't realize at the time that a heavy metal band putting out a concept album about Moby Dick could be career suicide. But we loved the idea because we're fans of conceptual albums by our heroes like Genesis and Iron Maiden and King Diamond. The idea was very bold. Brent, Bill, and I said, let's go for it. The creation of Leviathan was a race against time, squeezed into a period between their 03 European tour for Remission and supporting Clutch in North America in 04, says Brian. All the songs from Leviathan came together over the course of 2 or 3 months. Unfortunately, with the church tour kicking off in February and studio time booked for March, rehearsals were a pipe dream. So they concocted a strategy utterly unthinkable today. Every night in front of the Clutch's unsuspecting audience, they would play the new untested material. That's the kind of gamble exactly that I can say is necessary, and especially with how bands like this get to where they are today, that these guys played untested material in front of the audience for opening up for Clutch, as Clutch is already big. These guys weren't yet. It looks like there is one more page left, but they eventually made it to Relapse Records, playing for Killswitch and Gage. Got some good reviews from critics. Commercially debuted at number 139 on the Billboard 200, an impressive feat for a band that had been slugging it out in metal small clubs. It would go on to sell more than 100,000 copies within 2 years and get them on tours with metal heavyweights. Everything started happening after Leviathan came out. Now this is the end of the article, and they don't mention anything about Ashes of Leviathan, but that is the recent tour that just... Oh, it is. Here it is. Ashes of Leviathan. The Ashes of Leviathan tour, co-headlining run with Lamb of God, who released their own game-changing Ashes of the Wake on the same day as Leviathan, as we just had the birthday for Ashes of the Wake, the 20th anniversary edition, and some new health remixes of the tracks from that album, Ashes of the Wake. And then the article ends in a quote from Troy, who says, "Personally, I think it's an incredible achievement for 4 dudes who met up in Atlanta in 2000. As one of the authors of this record, I find it magical. Like my bandmates, Leviathan never ceases to amaze me. And this professor likes it, and this podcast host also agrees." Last but not least in this, and then I'm going to let you guys go, we have Nightwish, my ex. Here it is, folks, the cover of this issue. Nightwish, the symphonic orchestral metal band that says, "We are lucky to be alive. A turbulent few years saw Nightwish mastermind Tuomas Holopainen facing up to his own mortality. The result was epic and uplifting new album, Yesterwind." Thomas and Floors being on the following page. Caption says, "We have the chance as a species to survive." Before I dig my teeth into this one here, I want to make sure I mention one of the music videos that gets all of the viewers aware at the end of the music video of World Land Trust that I happen to have followed their newsletter on, and they've recently had a recent win over the funding that they ask for conservationism and saving the tigers in the savannah. So let's see what this caption says. Read a couple other captions and we'll get into it. Floor will be keeping busy with their family and solo work while Nightwish takes some time out. I also have to add a side note too, that I could see how me endorsing this band is a little bit non-conducive to what I do, but I have already reached out to the newsletter to, you know, get involved in some conservationism. I like David Attenborough, and for somehow or other, David Attenborough and World Land Trust are connected, but that's probably due to conservationism. Nightwish at Birmingham's Resorts World Arena in November 2022. We'll miss them wowing us live, with Thomas there in the background playing some wacky looking instrument, looks like a hurdy-gurdy, while singing. Stage is up in flames, this dude's hair banging, and Floor's doing her thing, with more flames up in the air. It's not the end of the band. Nobody's angry at each other, Floor says. Followed by a quote from Thomas, "I don't listen to music at all anymore." Lantern light hit me the most. I sat there crying, Floor says about the song Lantern Light. Alright, here is the article's breakdown. This is something I'm going to give my summary and take on, but it's something you really actually need to read yourself. I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, download the Libby app and add your library card number into the app so that you can also get a digital version of this, or subscribe here. Third-party access is magazinesdirect.com/MHR/D35R for the promo code. But this article is extremely well written. It starts off by saying Thomas was a misanthrope who wore all black, listened to black metal, and had a grim attitude towards reality before changing his view and seeing how things have always been messed up around the world, specifically the destruction of the climate, as a continuing premise on their songs. Hence the reason why World Land Trust is a non-profit organization being promoted by this band, Nightwish. I want to make sure both myself and the audience know that I'm not going to leave out details like the description of the band's most recent album, Yesterwind, as being referred to as charged with emotion, hope, beauty, positivity, and yes, optimism, despite that it is orchestral symphonic metal, and it does contradict black metal in every single way. Marco Hietala left the band due to music industry disillusion, heavy depression, and causing him to leave the band. The front woman, Floor Jensen, was diagnosed with breast cancer in June of 23. The singer was also pregnant with her second child, collapsed into exhaustion following a Nightwish show in Finland, prompting the cancellation of 2 subsequent solo gigs. And this is the different that you get this news here all in a collective bundle as opposed to piece by piece and reading stuff from any of the other metal news sources. Other bands have buckled under the battering of the last few years, but Nightwish and Thomas have taken a different path. Rather than wallowing in trauma, Yesterwind has caused them to make 69 minutes of emotional ground being covered in an overwhelming sense that of optimism. It has a very optimistic vibe to it. And as they reference here to the Human 2, that came out when the pandemic started, discouraging them from doing shows. I happen to have regularly watched the music video for Noise that happened to be a message, it might be referenced in here at some point, expressing that too many people are on their phones all day, basically, and how that affects people on a mass scale socially. So these kind of premises all wound up together, wind up being a very poignant as well as optimistic and vital to taking a good reflection, take a good look at having an accurate reflection on how the things are operating here in our species today. But the loss, grief, and the existential fragility of humanity and the hope it inspires is all here in the most recent album, Yesterwind. Closing track, Lantern Light, is the one referenced to here. And made the front woman break down crying. And it's the celebratory lament for those who are no longer with us. Quote from the lyrics is, "Gone is the hurt, the weight, gone is the warmth of day." Floor sings, and later, "To the meadows I go, I'll be waiting for you." Yeah, these are some seriously emotionally invoking lyrics and emotionally invoking songs that can really bring out some tears in you. Even some of the most hard-hearted people can open up to this kind of stuff. And I certainly have an interesting relationship with this kind of music and these kinds of people, as it's being well documented here by me, and there's a lot of content to go through. So as a side note here, and as my last advertisement, make sure you check out the Linktree, check out Lions Den Productions YouTube channel, Pitiful Spawn, my recent black metal project, Mickey GemInEye official YouTube channel, and of course this channel, the Vault of Doom podcast. Let's get back to the article. Born out of the pandemic, like so many things, this album has been the follow-up to Human, number 2, Nature. As that album was postponed due to COVID, suddenly Thomas had nothing to do, so he thought he better start writing songs about the next Nightwish album, and making this a follow-up to Human 2, Nature, as well as that album being a follow-up to 2015's Endless Forms, Most Beautiful. It was different to me, she says. Floors, the front woman, not bad, not at all, but different. And then a few weeks after the writers of this article met in Berlin, met Thomas in Berlin, they were sitting backstage, ready to play a show, and her daughter was hungry, so they just kind of like muse a little bit and teeter about when this interview happened. And so she's sharing various little tiny sentiments. But she is emphasizing she wants to make sure your emotions can connect with the songs here on this album. For when she wrote it, she was pregnant, and right before that she had cancer. So that's kind of where a lot of this stuff comes from, having so many important, we're lucky to be alive, we survived this and we've been through it type phrases. But she literally collapsed from exhaustion following a Nightwish show in June 2023 while pregnant. Thankfully, both she and her daughter were fine. But the 2 solo shows that followed were canceled due to this. And there's the part that I'm anxious to get to here is the Indiana Jones part. I want to see what that's about. So let's go ahead and, mind you, I will be reading this on a nice quiet Sunday morning later with a cup of coffee or something, listening to the birds, or even just later tonight where it's not Sunday morning, it's the nighttime of opposite of Sunday, and the crickets will guide me along my journey of rereading this, as I'm just going through the experience of reading it this way for now, as I often experiment with my if you must have a piece of my ego or something to go off of, that's what it is. It's just, I have to experiment here a little bit with how I'm reading this now. To me, it's, quoting Flores, it's a continuous awareness about the beauty of the planet we're on and the positivity of us as a species. We get all this negative feedback about killing the planet and hurting each other, and all of that is unfortunately true. Feeds me, helps me in my music. But there's also a lot of beauty to it. Humanity has achieved amazing things throughout history, and we should remind ourselves of that. That is sometimes forgotten in the speed of the life we give today. I have to respond with a no comment there. The grim realities are not being withheld from this optimistic album, it states. When Finland and Russia had some quarrels, she did not feel afraid, not once, even though she lives less than 10 kilometers from the Russian border. And don't get your hopes up, spoiler alert here, we're not going to be talking about politics. Thomas says, honestly, I don't care at all. It doesn't move me in any direction that they have found each other. They can play and perform as many Nightwish songs as they want. It doesn't bother me one bit. That's actually Marco, not Thomas. Sorry, Marco, the band who left the band due to some heavy depression. As for the rest of the article, this one here is drawn to a close with me following it up as well as ending it here to Desert Islands, Cave Bears, and Indiana Jones. And this album in question, Yesterwind, is the most recent Nightwish album, probably available for streaming wherever you consume your music. So make sure you go check that out. Yesterwind in the late 2020 was the Yesterwind was begun, the writing begun for this album in 2020, and these are some of the tracks from the album, or every track on the album being described in great detail as Thomas Holopainen's track-by-track guide to Yesterwind. So there are some references to Indiana Jones, bears that live in caves, and desert islands, as the last page here basically states more interview conversation. Make sure you check that out. You know where to find it. And get yourself digital copy or purchase. This issue is a United Kingdom version, so you're going to have it shipped over from the UK. And this is exclusive. This interview is exclusive to this version of the zine. So make sure that you guys check this next episode out that I have in store for you. Make sure that you check out where to get all of your freaking news when you're waiting for me to come out with a new episode. And I am Mickey GemInEye. This is the Vault of Doom podcast, episode 38. And let it fucking roar. It's been fun hanging out with you guys. I'll see you later.